Okay, so this is the second part of our God versus atheism, if you want to call it that. I don't like labeling things. I don't want to be called a theist. I don't even really understand what that word means, so I mean, let's stop labeling people. First off, I'm not a cultist. I'm just a person that came up with a different answer. And so here's our continuation from messages sent back and forth from this first video. And at this point, our messages went private so we could have more than 500 characters to work with. And her next response was, okay, since you've gotten so far with your theory of multiple levels of consciousness, what's higher than a human being? Where did it come from? I've heard from your reasoning. What is your proof? As you have said that you have tested the theory, what are your conclusions and what does it prove in the ways of God? My reply was, apparently, I am the first person to offer an opinion other than God is real. If you just read the Bible, you'd know. And apparently, you are the first, for myself anyways, to say, no Bible thumping. Let's see what he's got. After learning the story of the Buddha, I was able to have my own revelations, certain universal truths, and if you read them, you will also know them to be true. I offer just a sample. So, when I myself started getting to this new consciousness level, I started receiving these messages. I didn't actually receive messages, it's just that I would start thinking about a subject and the puzzle pieces would start falling into place and I would have my answer. And here's just a few of those answers, and if you listen to them without any bias, you'll know that these are universal truths, and I mean, there's virtually no debunking it. You can debunk it. You can debunk it all you want, but I mean, you'll generally know that these answers are universally correct. And again, this is just a handful. Life has no guarantees. That is the only guarantee. You'll never find the answers to your questions if you never start to look. Again, the Forrest Gump approach. I've never stopped looking. The difference between knowledge and wisdom: knowledge is passed on from generation to generation, always growing. And wisdom has to be found on your own. A person's spirit, I mean, you know, like generally how you feel, you know, the spirit inside you. Sometimes you feel good in spirit, sometimes you feel bad in spirit. A person's spirit is like a change jar. If you put a little something in it every day, sooner or later it will be overflowing. If you let others constantly dip into it, it remains empty. A person's free will, and this is one of the things that God, and again I say God in a loose term, God has given people free will. And my answer to free will: a person's free will is like an elephant sitting in the middle of the street. No matter how much you push it or poke it or tempt it with a treat, it'll only move when it's made up its mind to. And that's generally how humans are in general. I mean, everybody makes up their own mind when they're ready to, no matter how much people try to convince you. More importantly, a mind is much like a book. both have to be open to do anybody any good. Any relationship is like making soup. If you use good ingredients, it can be very satisfying. If you put nothing but crap in it, it will always leave a bad taste in your mouth. Friends are like water. They can give you a soft landing when you fall, but can evaporate if you make things too hot or turn hard when treated coldly. Now, you might understand this, you might not. If you need understanding, I'll explain it to you. This is my own, and you'll get to know it later if you want. If you have enough wisdom, fire can be made from water. Okay, that was the end of my little sayings, and I continued on. Now, I ask you, is this an open debate, or are you only looking for me to show you the test stick with the positive indicator? If the answer is the latter, then there's no point in me continuing. If you want to pick my brain, that is a different story. All I can do is show you evidence. The jury has to make up its own mind. And her reply, I've heard a lot of people say that God is real because of the Bible, so it is rather refreshing to hear a different stance. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, your thoughts on multiple levels of consciousness is your own personal truth based on your own revelations, which were at least in some part influenced or inspired by learning about Buddha and Buddhist thought. Personally, I'm interested in where you're coming from in terms of your beliefs and how and why you believe what you do when you come to your own conclusions, whether they relate to my initial question of where did God come from or not. So my labeling this as a debate was a bit of a leap. Perhaps it's more of a constructive conversation. And my reply, well, it's good. I could reach somebody. There is a spiritual possibility that you found a little crack to hide your video in, meaning that she had her reply inside of somebody else's video and I was the first to find it. That you found a little crack to hide your video in just so I could find it. You know, there's a spiritual possibility of that. The fact that I did supports this, or it could be a simple form of, could be as simple as random chance. Either valid, or either answer is valid. Can I convince you of anything? No. Can I take something I say and you use your own logic and see a sense to it? That is my only goal. In the words of Buddha, paraphrasing here, do not believe anything said to you, even if said by me. All I can expect you to do is hear my words and you decide if they are true. Ooh, new mail. This is only my opinion, nothing personal, but some atheists get tired of looking for the answer and stop looking. Again, where I have taken the Forrest Gump approach, meaning since I've gotten this far I might as well keep going and repeat the process. Now for your questions. The answer is long, and this is where my reasoning starts on the belief of God. And again, God as in a relative term for now. And this is how I understand things. as far as religion goes, and that is every culture is different. How they eat, what they eat, how they dress, buildings, language, virtually everything we do from culture to culture to culture to culture is different. I mean, in America, we're meat, potatoes, pizza. In Asia, they eat rice, have those lovely silk robes, and eat with chopsticks. So, I mean, everything we do as far as culture goes is different. So the same must be true with religion. All countries have a difference about God. Again, I only use that lack of name for a better one. But yet all share the same concept that there is something bigger than us out there. Again, it's expanding on that. Again, all people eat, all people live in houses, and everything is different. So why would the concept of God be the same? I mean, everybody started from years ago, and so it's going to be different. The story of Babylon in Genesis says everybody was divided up like this by God. So how could it be a sin to study Buddha when it was God who practically left them without anything else? Before I knew about Buddha, my thoughts were, since Jesus could never reach the whole world, then maybe God sent Buddha to take care of those people. Years ago, I studied shamanism and considered myself to be a shaman, the Indian medicine man. I can use runes and tarot cards very well. I still have them, but since I'm in better control of my own future, I don't see the need. My wife is from Laos, and I was introduced to the idea of Buddha, but didn't understand the principle until I watched the Buddha PBS documentary, after which I completely understood. Like Buddha, shortly after, there was a catalyst that got me to recognize the basic truth of all things, and started writing those truths down. Some I showed you. I showed a couple to a monk, and his reply that this is very good, keep going. So I did. Now I understand that I think on a higher level of consciousness, which is the true meaning of the Mayan calendar. The world will not end. We will evolve. Expanding on that, the Mayan calendar is not showing us the end of the world. It's a stopwatch, a countdown clock to a wobble in the earth. This wobble takes several thousand years to complete one circle, and we are coming at the end of this rotation. That is it. And at the end of this rotation, the human race will begin a new understanding of things, just as we came from in the last century. We have understood so many more things than we used to. In the next century, we will understand so much more. And that's what the Mayan calendar is. And basically, we can continue on later. Continuing. Now I understand that religion is basically looked at from the wrong angle. People pray to Buddha and other gods and expect them to pull them up to his level without any work on their own. This is wrong. The idea is to see what makes the Buddha The closer you get to that understanding, you notice that it is not Buddha bringing you up to his level, but it is your level of consciousness coming closer to his. And that's where we left off. So now, that is basically my opinion on how basic religion works. And at this point, we will open to anyone who has questions. Alright? Good luck.